Today marks that day that I mentioned yesterday where the seasons are changing. Today marks a day that's been really building in my life, probably all the way back since February of 2017. And I'll go as far back to say that this moment, this day, today, September 1st, 2021, has really been building since August 11th of 2007, which was the year and the day that I left the United States Marine Corps. Because for me, I got out of the Marine Corps with the simple idea that the Marine Corps was going to hold me back, that there was something about me that didn't really resonate with the Marine Corps in the way they measured people. I wasn't good at shooting, I wasn't good at running, and now looking back, there was a lot of other issues that were limiting me, but at the time, I felt I wasn't propelling and I was being held back. So I got out. The problem was I adopted the path that everybody else takes in life instead of trying to find my own. February of 2017, I read a book called Freelance to Freedom by Vincent Puglisi that I had mentioned a few days ago. That book sparked an idea of creating a freedom-based business that allows me time, location, and money freedom to spend my life and do the things that I wanted. Now that's easy to read, much harder to do. So not really sure what business, any idea, what side hustle I wanted. All of that was kind of incubating in the background. And for the next 5 years, I essentially just did a lot of random things. We started 2 podcasts. We've started this podcast. I've started my coaching business. I started a podcast editing business last year to earn some money. All of these different things, we're kind of just figuring it out. Fast forward a little bit further, January of 2020, I lose my job and I'm thrust into this freedom world without the safety net that I was hoping for. Little did I know that I was going to double down on being a professional speaker with that newfound thrust and freedom. But also what I didn't know was Corona was right around the corner. And so with Corona, that gave me the choice to be a stay-at-home dad. So for the last year and 8 months, I've been a stay-at-home dad trying to figure this out, earn some money to keep the lights on with my wife, who's a kindergarten teacher. So she's the primary breadwinner, figuring out what this was wanting, figuring out what this was going to look like, figuring out what it could be and how could it actually get some lift. Well, today marks that day that I kind of get to do it full time, but without having to go to work. Because today marks the day that all 3 kids got on the bus. Today marks the day that I get the full day to work on what I need to get done for the business. And it's always been my objective to build a business that works 10 months out of the year so I can enjoy the summer with my kids and my wife for those 2.5 months when everyone's out of school. And so now this is kind of that season where all the kids are in school. I'm not balancing dad mode. I'm not balancing this dad guilt that was building and percolating for almost 7 years. And that dad guilt is something to reckon with. It is a really, really difficult emotion. And it's even more difficult when you don't have somewhere to go that kind of changes the mode, or when you're trying to do work and you know your kids are right outside the door, or you're doing a dad podcast, investing work here, helping other dads. Meanwhile, your kids are out there either on their tablets or doing something that they're not supposed to. Just today, inside my office, doing a little bit of work, my daughter was outside playing with a neighbor girl, and they decided to fill up a bucket with water and take a shower. Dumped their heads into it. Their shirts were all wet. Their hair was all wet. And I'm just like, ugh. Tomorrow, this day was going to be better because the kids will be in school and I won't have to worry about balancing or worrying about whatever it is that they're out there doing. But back to the seasons change. Because one thing that really got me through, I mentioned it yesterday, picking your hard, choosing the hard that you want to go, was understanding that everything is a season. There was only going to be one season when my daughter was in preschool where she's home in the mornings and at school in the afternoon. That only happened for 1 year. Had I chosen to get a job, that season would have been gone. Today would have marked a day of missed opportunity and additional dad guilt. But I chose the hard to stay home with my daughter, figure everything out, keep track of my health, figure out how to connect with her, figure out how to build a business, figure out how to get her preschool, pick her up every day, and still all get it together. Meanwhile, have dinner on the table when everybody's ready and hungry at night. All of that was extremely hard, but it was a season that prepared me for being able to crush laundry when I have a full 40-hour week, to understand the systems and processes I need in place to complete laundry and get it folded, washed, and get the beds washed every 2 weeks, and to get these things very regimented so that they don't become something that weighs the business down. And I can almost get all of my stay-at-home dad duties done within about an hour and a half each day. In the beginning, that was not the case. In the beginning, it was a hot mess. But I learned a lot of valuable lessons in that season. And now as I go into this next season, almost everything is changing. And by looking at it in seasons, I understand that this moment, the one that's right here, the one that you're listening to this podcast, is temporary. In a few minutes, this podcast episode will be over, and there'll be a new moment that you have to experience. It's all constantly changing. And what I want you to take away from this episode is understanding that your life has seasons. Your life has these years, these compartmental years, where things look a certain way, especially if you have a newborn. Things are going to be hard. You're thinking like, will we ever get sleep again? And then you do get sleep, and then you convince yourself to do it all over again. And you're like, what were we thinking? All of those moments are seasons. They change. They come and go. Raising kids generally gets harder as the seasons change, even though, man, there's days where I'm just like, it was so much easier when I just had to wipe your butt. Because now you're bringing me these problems that are really difficult, and we have to have hard conversations, and I've got to dig deep to even come up with wisdom to try to help you through it. All of it is changing the seasons. And so today, on September 1st, I want this episode to inspire you maybe to find and look at what season are you in, and find what do you want to make sure you don't leave behind when this season changes. What do you want to make sure you can experience in the season that you're in, so that when the seasons do change, because oftentimes you don't know when they're going to happen, that things happen and you look back and you're like, I'm grateful I chose to be present in that season, because now it's gone and there's no second chances. There's an analogy that I've heard said that you'll never know when your kids will have it be the last time they ask you to tuck you in one more time. Just one day, it's going to be gone. You're not going to know when that moment's gone. But you got to be ready for it. And just like that. And you'll be like, well, if somebody told me it was going to be gone today, I would have paid attention. I would have made sure I would have slowed down in the moment to feel it. But you don't get that. Seasons are always changing. Acknowledge how you're showing up in those seasons and find the path through to whatever you truly want to look back on and be grateful in your life. And I'll be back again with you guys tomorrow.